Heidi. We've got the lovely Ollywn from Cathy Kids and Cathy from Weaning.ie. So I think you're going to learn loads. I know I will. I always do. We're going to take 10% off any Weaning products that we have on sale here that aren't already marked down. So that's an offer. So feel free to shop afterwards. I will remind you again at the end. Yeah. So enjoy. And if you need any more tea or coffee, or if you need to change anyone, just use one of our changing tables at the back, or in the nursery section. So crying is fine. We're very used to it. So don't be under any. Okay, brilliant. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Thank you.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Suppose we've no major plan, are we?
No,
We're just
kind of
available.
freestyling.
Yeah.
Just no song requests.
So if you have any questions or anything, or do you want to introduce yourself fully? Or
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ollywn, and I am the founder and CEO of Cathy Kids. I don't know if you know the brand, but we've been on the market for about 10 years. And some days you talk to me, it'll feel like 100 years, and other days it'll feel like I just launched it last year. But my background is actually in cognitive neuroscience. That's what the fancy term is now, but previously it used to be neuropsychology and neurophysiology. So I'm obsessed with brain health and how we help our babies develop. So for years I worked in education, but then I also worked in remediation, so with children with kind of difficulties and developmental delays and so on. So I saw the way that the world was changing, and I kind of felt, okay, screens are now a big thing, and kids aren't developing the fine motor skills in their hands, which are also linked to the fine motor skills in their mouth, because you can't separate them. They're all operating from the same area in the brain. So I was like, okay, so screens aren't going anywhere. What can we do to help our little ones develop their fine motor skills? So that's where kind of the Cathy Kids brand was born from. So we are extending our range. So all of our products are designed by me with a very specific developmental aspect to them. So it can take us a little while to add to our product range. We don't just pump out products. But our most common ones that people would know would be the sip cup, which is here. I shall model it like so. But this is designed as an open cup. So I'm not sure if you know, but actually it is suggested that you start introducing an open cup when you're starting to wean your baby. Only very small amounts of water, but actually it's really good. It's actually the best way for them to learn and to help develop their oral motor skills. So because I know, again, that the oral motor skills in the mouth and the hands are linked, same area in the brain, just keep thinking that. I wanted to develop something, not just a cup, but I wanted to develop something that would actually encourage them to develop their oral motor skills in their hands while they're developing, their fine motor skills in their hands while they're developing their oral motor skills at the same time. So that's where this cup has come out of. So it's a little amazing, I have to say. But then obviously we did a little separate straw and lid to help your little ones as well if you want the straw, kind of to introduce straw drinking. But it's really primarily designed as your open cup. So have any of you kind of a fear around introducing an open cup, or any questions around how would you introduce an open cup or anything like that? Maybe that might be kind of from 6 months, from once or ideally kind of when you start weaning. So weaning should really be started around 6 months unless otherwise directed by a medical professional. So ideally when you're starting little weaning, but not before, so you don't fill them up with water, because their tummies are really still very, very tiny.
How much liquid should you start with, from 6 months?
Yeah.
Will I just say a bit about me first, and then
Sorry.
All
about me.
Just so you know, so I'm Cathy from Weaning.ie. I'm a paediatric dietitian for over 20 years, and in Temple Street for over 15 years. So I suppose, like Ollywn, the importance of starting solids, and it's really an investment in your baby's future, how they can develop with solids and the skills that they can learn and everything. I think mainstream maybe starting solids has been reduced to just getting food into their belly, but actually it's like the beginning of a whole wonderful world of food, and it's chewing, speech, everything that we do now is going to contribute to your baby's development going forward. So I suppose I don't have physical products, but I have products on the website. So I have the Weaning Masterclass, Toddler Masterclass, and I have other courses available, and we're available for online consultations as well. And because we're CORE registered professionals, it's all redeemable on health insurance. And the code WEAN50 will give you 50% off everything on the website until Friday. If you want to check it out. So yeah, questions then?
Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah.
How much water?
How much water, we
Yeah.
start with.
So really, ideally, you only give them a very small, like if you think about it, kind of around, like a sip or two. So maybe maximum like not a teaspoon, a tablespoon kind of water that gets down. So some of it will be on them for the first while. And actually, it depends on your kind of style as well. So a lot of the time, parents prefer to fill up the cup pretty much. So this is a 50 ml cup. So and it has grades down the side here, so you can actually see what they're taking in, or have an idea. So if a chunk of it's gone down, then obviously not gone in, and you can make your own estimate. But a lot of the time, actually, what parents find is if you fill this up pretty much to the kind of the top part here, that it's easier for them. They don't have to tilt their head back to get the water down. So it actually helps them in their swallow as well. So it's less resistant and less of a big thing. And they also then won't have it going down their windpipe, where it can, if they tilt their head back, it can also kind of go down. And they can get a little bit kind of coffee and spluttery, as my mum would say, but with the Roscommon accent, a bit spluttery. But yeah, so and then just really it's not a whole lot, but the most important thing is actually the process of learning how to do that. Because as Cathy was saying, it's the development now of the oral motor skills that are super, super important for more advanced feeding, but also for speech. And it's really critical for that, and we want to help them then, work through the stages of babbling and cooing, and but it's all so linked. Like, I mean, the body is amazing; it's just phenomenal, but it's also so nuanced that you really have to, like, I always like to say, development and your child's development isn't passive. You can be active in it. There are things that you can do to help them, and with that really good foundation, then you're building for the next mini milestone or major milestone. And all of these, I like to categorize them as mini milestones, because they lead up then to the self-feeding and the more complex.
And it's way harder to help
food.
A toddler if you haven't laid the foundations when you're starting solids than if you know exactly what you're trying to achieve when starting solids. And it's not just about foods that look good and sound good and whatever, but it's the skills. What I would see is, like, from your baby's point of view, say they're used to milk, whatever way you feed your baby, milk contains lactose. Lactose is sweet, so milk tastes sweet, but when you're trying to introduce water, there's no taste of it. It's colourless, odourless, tasteless, pointless from your baby's point of view. So it can take 8 to 10 weeks for your baby to actually learn to like water, to the taste of water. And what I would see is parents sometimes, oh my God, they're not drinking any water, and then you chop and change beakers all the time, and then your baby actually doesn't get a chance to learn the skills on any beaker. So it's a skill, it takes time to learn. So you have one, baby has one, you go cheers, you show them what they're doing, and it's skill. So it's like when your baby starts to crawl and starts to try and walk and lift themselves up. We don't go they just can't walk, we go yay, and you cheer on what they're achieving. So it's the same with learning to drink from a beaker or straw or whatever, that it just takes time to keep going again.
Yeah, absolutely. And as well, so when your baby's born, I don't know if you know this, but the tongue takes up most of the mouth cavity actually, and that's to allow them to make a really good latch on whether it's breast or bottle. But the tongue can only move up and down. So in order for speech and feeding, we need to get the tongue to move side to side and forwards and backwards as well. So it's really important that we can help them along that. And believe it or not, it can be an issue in trying to help that development. So
I think a good place to start before you even start solids is think about what you're actually trying to achieve. you know, think of your future 5-year-old. So this is the shortest space of time, but it's like the foundation of a house. You know, we lay the foundations now, and what we achieve now is going to make your future parenting easier. So, you know, think of your future 5-year-old. Do you want your future 5-year-old that enjoys the same food that you do, that enjoys different textures, different colours, different flavours, is easy to go on holidays with, that's easy to go out for dinner, easy to drop off to your parents' house to mind? So if that's what you're trying to achieve, you know, you start all that now. If we start with sweet flavours and don't progress with textures, you know, that's going to hold us back. Most baby food products are sweet because we were all born with a preference for sweet flavours. And if, you know, if your baby, say, what your baby likes to eat, the flavours that they like at about 9 or 10 months is indicative of the flavours that they might like at age 5. So what you do now is going to stand to you in the future. So be wary of social media posts. You know, it's real buyer beware.
Yeah.
In for the food part of things anyway, big time.
Question with the straw.
Yeah.
Can you use that in 6 months as well? Do
Yes.
you alternate between open and straw?
So I would suggest you just
Pick one or the
start
other.
with the open cup first
Yeah.
and get them to master that
Okay.
first, because it's actually the best. So the best way for your child. So that's why I actually started with when they're born. The sucking action of a breast or bottle is actually a very early stage kind of method of feeding. And what we want to do is we want to progress them to a more mature method of feeding, but in line with their capabilities and their capacity. So the best thing is actually to go to open cup and to introduce open cup. And then once they are proficient, or you feel that they're, you know, comfortable enough that they can actually get that swallow in, it's not a suck, it's a proper sip
Yeah.
and swallow, because most sippy cups actually encourage sucking, which is the primary or the primitive kind of the basic.
I tried them on one and he just coughed it out. Like,
Yeah,
I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the right sippy cup, or maybe
yeah.
I shouldn't use a sippy cup. Or I was just questioning.
Yeah, no, and that's it. So if you're looking at buying a sippy cup, what you need to make sure actually is that it's encouraging a sip, not a suck.
Yeah.
So most of those 360 cups, you know, they're handy for traveling and stuff like that, but it's actually, they're sucking. They're still sucking. So if you keep thinking about, that's a very primitive method of getting liquid into me, and it's preventing the development of their oral motor skills.
Yeah.
You know, open cups are more of a nightmare at the start, but it's like Cathy said,
Mess is essential.
that's how they learn.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always say, like, when you're introducing it, don't decide to bring it for when you're meeting another
course.
few for like, you know, coffee or something like that, and all babies are around. But that's actually why we did the lid on the straw, was for when you're out and about, say like if you're having a lunch or something like that, and they're used to the cup, then you can introduce the straw. So an open straw with no valves is the second best to an open cup, if that makes sense. So,
Cheers.
And if your
Answer your
baby,
question.
like say a toddler who is having more difficulty with food and feeding, whatever, you know, if they haven't seen the food, touched the food, spilled the drinks, you know, got it all over their fingers, that is going to be a toddler that is going to find it harder to accept different tastes, textures, flavours, because it's familiarity. So, you know, it's
Doesn't play.
yeah, it has to be like play. It's tactile. It's, you know,
sensory.
all the senses. Yeah, exactly.
My mother-in-law's gonna love that.
Yeah, so it's really short-term pain, long-term gain, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yes, how do you marry the need for cognitive development and the anxiety of them getting all of their nutrition in them? Like particularly concerning about the iron intake and, you know, stuff like that.
So, like, there's no nutritional aims from food until after about 7 months, and like if you think of starting solid feeding as the feeding skills, so you know, nutritionally I have it all on the course, but we can meet the iron intake easily once we know what we're doing. And you know, once we do that and we can tick the boxes, then we invest in the fund. And you know, I suppose it depends if you're weaning your baby vegan or vegetarian. You have to be more mindful of quantities of iron and things like that, and frequency of offering. But you know, once from about 7 months, we 3 times a week we can get the iron needs in, and then if they see the green foods, touch the green foods, the textures, the bitter flavours, if we develop the bitter flavours and focus on developing the skills of feeding, you know, nutritionally we can do it all. Yeah.
Another question is, how do you start weaning if your baby's prone to allergies? She's been not really diagnosed with eczema, so I stopped for a week about weaning, and she improved. She had also an allergic reaction to, we're not really sure what, and I'm introducing one food at a time, but she takes very little, and she's almost 7 months.
Okay. So is there a history of food allergy in the family, asthma, eczema? So the old advice with eczema used to be that food was causing the eczema, but we know now that eczema so is broken down skin, and if the skin is broken down, the allergens can get through the skin, and that causes the body to react. Whereas if the allergens are going through the digestive tract, that is the best thing we can do. The allergists would describe it as, this is somebody coming in uninvited through your window, whereas this is somebody invited through the door.
Yeah.
So there was a study done in 2016, the LEAP study between the UK and the Middle East, and say in the UK the incidence of peanut allergy was 17% because peanuts weren't being introduced until babies were over 2, whereas in the Middle East peanuts were being introduced as the first food in weaning, and that is the best thing we can do to help prevent food allergy. So holding off on foods isn't necessarily the answer. It might be something that we talk properly in a one-to-one or something, but we'd need to know more. The best thing you can do is invest in the skin, you know, and sometimes it can be a contact reaction rather than a food allergy. Like what kind of foods did you notice was getting worse?
She got a weird reaction to bananas.
Okay.
Like
What was the weird reaction?
So I wasn't really sure it was the banana, only after I stopped weaning and then introduced it again. She developed hives, and then those hives kind of expanded and become like white in the middle and red around
And did you go to
the
your
borders.
GP or?
Yeah, we went to the A&E to everything.
Okay.
The following day she woke up with her eyes completely swollen.
Okay. And have you been referred to an allergist?
Yes, we
Okay.
have. We haven't heard anything yet, but they also gave a steroid cream for what they thought was the eczema. The steroid cream, I'm not sure it did really something, because it was gone within 20 hours. And now she has it again here and here,
Okay.
and no reaction to any other food. The banana gave her a hive in her neck.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in and just ask, like, you don't have to answer, but kind of, was her birthday anything kind of to note or remarkable or standard?
We had an emergency C-section.
Okay.
She got given antibiotic. I don't know if that has messed up with anything.
So have you been to a cranial osteopath?
No.
That's my first route for you would be, because from our perspective is that when kids have kind of reactions and allergies and things like that, that actually it's coming from the sensory system. The nervous system is in high alert. So it's often related to your birthing and birth trauma. So if you could go to, if you're nearby, there's actually an amazing cranial osteopath. I've gone to for like 30 years. I have a clinic on a Monday. She's next door, but I can give you her details because generally after about 3 sessions with her, the whole nervous system calms down as well. So it can be a kind of a perfect storm almost, you know, where everything is a little bit in flux.
And sometimes with allergy, the worst thing we can do is keep foods out
Yeah.
because the reaction can become more severe.
I'm
And
terrified of even peanuts.
yeah, so but we know that the early introduction is the best tool we have as well. So but we can talk about it more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On allergies, I've been looking up kind of like how to introduce egg, and she's 7 months, and I kind of want to start it. But like, how do you do that? Like, do you put it in other food, or do you have any examples?
An allergy is reaction to the protein in the food. So, you know, generally if you there's like 14 potential allergens, and if you're seeing reactions that isn't one of the 14 potential allergens, it's more than likely a skin reaction rather than a contact reaction rather than an allergy. But so it's a reaction to the protein in the food. Protein is like the chains of your necklace all joined together. The more cooked the food is, the more separate the proteins are. So the more cooked the food is when you're introducing it, the weaker the proteins are, and the more likely baby is to tolerate it. So when you're introducing, say, egg or shellfish or whatever, you want to make sure that it's really, really, really cooked, so that it's as weak, the protein chains are weak. And then as you introduce it more and more frequently, you can go to like less cooked but well cooked. But in the beginning, it's a little bit of egg, very, very well cooked egg yolk, egg white. You could boil an egg with a pot of potatoes or something, so that it's cooked for like 20 minutes, and then you're just taking a little bit of the egg yolk, a little bit of the egg white, mixing it in with a spoon or whatever into something that they already are having, already tolerating, and you want to make sure that they've had it, so you can say they've definitely had egg, and gradually move on from
say
there.
like with a sweet potato, for example, like
Whatever they're already
Yeah.
tolerating, yeah.
Okay.
They're vegetables. So vegetable first weaning helps develop the taste buds in a new direction. If we start with sweet foods, say traditionally in Ireland would have been pureed pear and things like that, baby's going to eat them, but it's not going to help you have a 10-month-old, 1-year-old that enjoys the same foods that you do. So if we start with the foods we expect them to like least, wake up the taste buds, might move a bit slower but lay a better foundation, that's going to help us. Does that answer?
yeah, thank you.
When should you introduce meat?
So we're starting weaning around the 6-month mark. We're starting with vegetable first weaning, and after 10 days, 2 weeks, we're starting to move towards a more balanced diet, proteins, carbs, and introducing that way. Yeah. Yeah. Right there. Yeah. Anyone else?
Sorry, I have loads of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm more thinking of going on holidays during the summer
Yeah.
and going to Italy, and I want to have her ready for like that we can just go to whatever restaurant and eat pasta. How is the best way to introduce pasta to, I suppose, like she's 7 months now, but
So what age will she be when you go on holiday?
10 months.
And will it be safe self-catering or?
No, like eating out, like we're going to a wedding.
Okay.
But I was thinking like if we go to restaurants that she could eat pasta. Like I'm like maybe am I being naive thinking she could eat pasta?
No, we'll introduce all the allergens so that you have freedom when you go away. And
Yeah.
it's going to be the salt content that you're looking for in restaurants, things like that. But like you can start with baby pasta, then you can, from a texture and self-feeding point of view, say macaroni is one, or you can, chop spaghetti with a scissors so that it's nearly like a grain of rice, and she's starting to self-feed that way, and you'll have any options when you're away. But it's you could order plain pasta for her and then give her your chopped tomatoes, some of your fish,
Yeah.
and just keep an eye on the salt content. But if you're staying in a hotel, the breakfast buffet in a hotel is perfect for babies. Weetabix and everything is always on offer wherever you go. You can have loads of variety that way. Yeah.
Perfect. And is there like a particular time or like when she's ready to she's kind of like she's eating food like not a bother, holding it like she's kind of starting to put it in her mouth. Obviously a little is only going in, she's not like fully feeding herself. So if I put the pasta kind of in front of her, try it out that way, just keep at it.
Absolutely. Just get the texture right for the stage that she's at,
Yeah.
and show her you're eating it, and if she's picking it up, put your mouth in and you show her
Oh yeah.
what you do, so she's going to mirror exactly what you're doing. And like your baby learns to talk by listening to you talk, they learn to walk by watching you walk, they learn to eat by your relationship with food, seeing you eat, seeing you enjoying your food. So you have to like try and sit down and whatever it is, even anything, sit and eat with your babies. They're going to copy you big time.
With baby-led weaning, when should you kind of worry about the portion sizes that they're eating? You say with the food in front of them and they'll kind of play with it themselves. Is there a certain age where they should be consuming kind of like a certain amount, and if they're just kind of throwing it all over their shoulder, should you be trying to get more into them?
If their stools have changed, that they're getting food in. you know, you don't have to declare yourself baby-led weaning or puree
traditional
or traditional or whatever. But
combination.
yeah, you know, traditionally from baby-led weaning you shouldn't use any implements, but you know, using the spoons, the dippers, whatever,
Yes.
that's the start of holding a pencil, that's the start of holding a hurl, that's the start of, you know, so everything is teaching your baby skills. And I think it's best off not to pigeonhole yourself, I'm only doing this, you know, because everything is a new skill. And then, like, if we know milk intake, you know, if we can say babies who are, your baby's stomach is roughly the size of their fist. If it's full of milk, there's less room for food. If we, you know, don't go food first, milk after from about 8 months, or we don't start reducing milk intake a little bit, they don't have the space to get more food in. But if they have the space to get more food in, and we present the food, and it's a relaxed atmosphere, and they can explore and touch and, you know, learn to chew, then we're going to raise intuitive eaters. We're going to be responsive feeders. If they want more, they have more. If, you know, teethers don't play havoc with appetite, they're going to eat less while they're teething. But if we're responsive feeders, it's more about learning to be a responsive feeder, you know, rather than measuring.
Okay.
Like, your baby will tell you the amount of food that they need.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're watching and measuring and weighing, we're not responding.
Because I know with my first, I kind of did mostly traditional weaning, and I was obsessed with the portion sizes. You know, she
So
wasn't
there is
eating
no
at all.
recommended portion size for babies.
Okay, that was my
You can
question.
buy things that will tell you that there is, but actually your baby will tell you how much they need. And you know, we've all grown up with diet culture. We've all grown up with good, bad, measure, less, just shouldn't eat this, whatever. We don't have to pass that on to our babies or our young kids. So if we start to be responsive feeders, we raise intuitive eaters, you know, it's a gift. Imagine not worrying about what you're eating, listening to your body. Oh, I don't need any more of that, I'm full. Rather than the complicated relationship that's kind of the standard now. Shows me. Anybody else?
You said like you need to start decreasing the amount of milk. Was there any issue with like their weight? Like she's very small, you know, first on diapers and everything. Should I be worried about her weight at this point, or?
Well, we'd have to have a proper chat because not everything's suitable for, but like milk is great for helping babies gain weight until around 6 months, but then we need, you know, the calorie shift changes, the growth rate is taken off, so sometimes, you know, if baby isn't getting enough calories from milk alone, you know, then we have to look at it. Yeah.
And just maybe we were talking about the traditional and combined and the baby-led weaning. So I think kind of the ideal seems to be a bit of the combined, where you've got puree, so at least you know that they're getting something into their tummies, and then they have their finger foods, then the kind of sensory input, play, figure out kind of the texture and the taste and so on. And you know, you can load up, like, you know, obviously we're the original flathead spoons, but the whole point of these is that it is for, with traditional kind of puree, it's a very passive feeding. They're not actually chewing anything, they're not engaged, there's nothing going on really, except it's just like shovel in the spoon, get it done as quick as possible. I know, it's been there, but you know, ideally we really need to be actually giving them some sensory inputs and allowing them to chew and feel what's going on in their mouth and how things feel and taste, and you know, those textures are really important as well. So a great way, even if you're just doing puree led, because I know some people feel much more comfortable with that, at least for a couple of months anyway, a couple of weeks. But if you're doing it, you can use something like this, which will still give them that sensory input and that texture as well, while it's still that very kind of blended pureed food where there's nothing kind of going in. And the ideal is if you load up one, so you're still getting them being active and engaged. And I always think this is actually still part of baby led, because if you load up the spoon and put it in front of them, and then you have the other spoon and you can put it in and kind of yum, yum, and get them to do the same thing. And then once they've got the hang of, okay, this spoon goes into my mouth because there's some yummy stuff on it, you can then just tag team the spoon. So load one up ready to go while they're feeding with the other one.
A preloaded,
and it actually,
preloaded spoon is
Yeah.
like a finger
kind
food.
of works
You have
really
one day
fast.
and one.
And you will want your child to say have yogurt in the future, so they need these skills. They might have soup in the future. They need these skills. So it's don't pigeonhole yourself into I'm only doing this, And then some days, like we have time to do everything, and other days we don't. So when you don't have the time, you go, okay, today I'm doing it this way, but at the weekend I'm going to have to invest a bit of time into sitting, eating, playing together, that kind of thing. There's only so much we can all do all the time, and most, everybody's working busy and everything, so it's recognising that we have to find different times in the week to do things.
With the timings, is there a good time to start? Like some people be like, oh, start at breakfast, start at dinner, and I'm just like,
Yeah, so you want baby to be as relaxed as possible. You want you to be as relaxed. So generally, not too hungry, not too tired, not in a rush anywhere. So, midday after a nap, maybe have a little bit of a milk feed so that they're not too hungry the first time you start. And it's gradual, calm, fun, relaxed, see, touch, play, and make it a place that they want to be. If it's stress, it's going to be hard to have fun.
And should you initially start with, from 6 months, one meal a day, and then work up from
So
there?
if you
What's the timeline?
increase the volume of food too quickly, you're more than likely going to run into a problem with constipation. So it's a gradual increase. But it doesn't mean, that sometimes there's strict rules, 1 meal a day, 3 meals a day, but actually it's the volume of food. So you might do 3 meals a day, but there could be only 2 or 3 teaspoons at each meal. And that might be better than 15 teaspoons at 1 meal. So it's the volume of food in the day rather than how many meals.
Okay.
yeah, I ran into constipation as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And is there a connection? He used to be sleeping through the night, and around 5 months he's not sleeping normal, feeding very frequently. So he's 5.5 months now, so I just started weaning little bits. But is there a connection between solids and weaning? And
Not
sleep?
really. It's nothing proven. I suppose I have 3 kids and I never had a sleeper. Did you sleep?
I was just actually telling one of the ladies here that my first slept from 6 weeks, 12 hours, and I was like, oh my god, boom, I'm having 10 days, amazing. And my second didn't sleep till he was 3, so I've only 2 kids, so take from that what you want.
It's just that
So
he used to, that's all.
Yeah.
it's probably a growth spurt though, where
Yeah.
he's actually just wanting kind of a bit more food, ready for a growth spurt.
So you can start
Yeah,
from
I'll find
17 weeks. We say around 6 months, but if you start closer to 17 weeks, we move really, really slowly. If we're starting closer to 6 months, we're moving way more quickly with taste, textures. But your needs are going to change at 5.5 months. You're nearly, it's fine to start at 5.5 months.
One thing I also found is it's not just food, it's comfort. Mine's starting to get really antsy if he's not near me, and he would put me to sleep when I always have. So that's it. But yeah.
I know, because I didn't know whether I should be feeding, every 2 hours if he's waking,
Like at 5.5 months, I have 3 kids. They all started solids at different times. They're already at different times showing signs of readiness. So, at 5.5 months, there's nothing wrong with starting.
You'll sleep again.
Yeah.
He's 4.5 months, but I haven't started laying yet. And I tried putting him in the monitor I have. He's definitely too young for that. Is there any other ideal feeding position or?
So you want baby to have a steady base, and you want them to have good head and neck control, because if they don't, that's a choking hazard in itself. So we were talking about tummy time and developing the steady base and supporting them to learn how to sit up and. But
Sorry, I was going to say, I have a little hack for if they, so ideally actually if they're not kind of like able to sit upright, we would say that they're not really ready for feeding, because when, if you think about it, they've been inside for 9 months hunched over, so you need them to have their digestive system elongated so to prevent or help to prevent kind of like constipation, colic, reflux and things like that. But if you find that, let's say you feel that he's ready, then, and the high chair might be just too big at the minute, what you can do is make sure you're sitting upright, but get a towel and roll it and prop him either side with a towel, which will help keep him upright. And then maybe they might need like a towel at the back as well, just to keep him in that upright position. But also make sure like there's head control there, because you know, if the head isn't being able to be held up, I would say it's, you know, like sticking a baby in a bumbo or something like that where they've got that C shape. It's not an ideal space or shape, A, for sitting, but it's B for feeding.
Right angles, and their feet to be supported. So, you know, imagine
90-90-90.
Yeah, imagine you trying to eat your dinner if you were sliding off the chair. You know, you wouldn't enjoy the meal and you wouldn't be able to. So, you know, maybe they're not ready yet as well, that you can wait another couple of weeks. Yeah.
Or a pub lunch, like I always equate it to, do you ever, you know, there's no high tables, there's only the low ones, and you sit over and like I, if I ever have to do that, I will be roaring with gas after, because my food is actually like stuck here because you've been bent over. So that's what, you know, kind of always just think about, if it could be as straight as possible. It's just giving them the best chance for successful feeding.
Yeah, it's like I bought a high chair, but it was a lot bigger than I expected based on the perspective of the photo. I was like, oh god, that's huge. So I have a little tabletop seat that you can take the trays off and it goes into the bath bed as well. But he's sitting really snug in it now, like he's really filled it out.
Yeah.
So you can't actually slide or move in it, and there's a bit between his legs as well.
Ah, great.
So it's not sliding. And he's on the table, so his feet are supported.
Okay.
And with the tray on, then he has his hands up as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something to try. The tabletop seat.
Yeah.
I'm back to you again.
You're alright.
Examples of finger food. So, what would you like suggest starting on?
I think the very best place to start is to make a list of all the foods that you like to eat and all the, you know, what veg do you like, what, you know, and if you want your baby to enjoy the same foods that you do, that's your roadmap. You know, it doesn't matter what Annabelle does or someone else does or whatever, you know, your baby is growing up in your house with the foods that you enjoy. So, you know, make a list of all the vegetables that you like to eat, and then the finger foods can be based on that, but you're doing the squish test. So it's like, even if they don't have teeth, the gums are going to be like doing the squish test. So, like, I suppose things like carrots, when they're all cooked in the same pot, sometimes you get a hard carrot, sometimes you get a soft one, because they're not all cut exactly equally. But it could be broccoli florets, it could be corn on the cob, is great for stimulation. Yeah, things like that. Even grated food, you know, the old box grater. That's so from a sensory perspective, you want the baby to be used to different sensations of food in their mouth. So, you know, like wet food, more dry food, crunchy food, all of correct texture, mushy. You know, a grated piece of fruit is going to feel different than a squashed piece of fruit. So it's waking up the senses, you know, and that is going to be a toddler that is easier to share food with.
Thank you.
Right.
And the store-bought kind of foods like Ella's Kitchen and things like that, are they recommended? Or, you know, I know I've heard of some people, I basically raised my first on them, but a lot of people kind of say they're good for, you know, snacks and the odd, you know, bringing spaces with you, or what would you
so nutritionally, so we're all born with sweet tooth, so, you know, it's, I suppose, in the company's best interest that they make food that babies love and will continue to eat. Say babies, toddlers like food that always looks the same, tastes the same, doesn't change. Okay, so anything out of a packet ticks all those boxes. You know, there's loads of research goes into the colours on the packets, it's at their eye level when they're in the trolley in the supermarket, things like that. So I suppose it's in their best interest that your baby loves their food, and then it's harder for your baby to like your food.
Yeah.
So your meals that you prepare, it could be different carbs, different proteins, different veg every day, so it changes. So it's harder for babies and toddlers to accept food that change.
Yeah.
So, I suppose hard work prevention would be to invest your time now into getting your baby used to seeing the foods that you like, touching the foods. So like any sort of baby food is fine for, the days where you're on an airplane or you're stuck in work or, just life hasn't got to plan.
Yeah.
But if we rely on them, we're kind of making hard work for ourselves in the
And
future.
would they kind of, the nutritional value and things like that, would that match what you'd have at home, or would there be additives? Or
It's
things
not
like
even the
that
additives. So when you eat a piece of fruit, you're eating it for the fibres and the water soluble vitamins. Say when you look at a pouch and it has apples, bananas, pears, blueberries, all organic, home cooked, whatever, they can add all those kind of names. But nutritionally, when the fruits are cooked to get into the pouch, you're destroying all the water soluble vitamins. So all you're left with is the sugars. So
That and they're blended.
yeah, so it's from a texture point of view, it's not. So it's sweet, it's smooth, like it's for the days where you're stuck.
Yeah.
And try and go for the ones that don't have fruit in it.
Yeah.
And the same goes for the little bars and things like that. They're all fine. They're not going to do your baby harm every now and then.
Yeah.
But if we rely on them, they're not going to develop the skills. It's taste and cost. Like when you compare the cost per kilogram or whatever of things you might make, it's not a long-term best investment of your time or money.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's kind of the way I could say it.
Yeah. It's probably more diplomatic
Yeah.
than I would.
What about those pouches that you can, I never use them for my first, but I see them out, that you can have a little zip and you put your own puree in them.
Like
Will
really-
it know better because you've made it, or is this process of them sucking on a pouch?
But
not
really,
great for them?
your baby only needs puree for probably around 10 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I didn't do purees on my first,
Yeah.
so I just did baby led weaning with her. But
So-
I see these pouches and I figure if you make your own, they must be better than the bought ones. But our pouches is
But you don't need, you could just put them in a Tupperware.
Yeah.
You don't have to, your baby's not going to be on purees long enough to invest in something like that, in my
I think
opinion.
it's the convenience
Yeah.
of bringing them with you somewhere, that they're in the pouch.
babies sitting in their buggies
Yeah.
eating them.
Yeah.
And that's that's a sensory thing as well. So, we have to see the food, touch the food, interact with food. If babies get used to eating out of pouches or anything, they don't see it, they don't touch it, they don't have the sensation of spill. So you might be creating sensory issues
Yeah.
for obviously the days where you're traveling and life isn't perfect, absolutely, but whenever you're at home and in the high chair and invest in all that. So it's what we do most of the time. Not
Well, my first was a lockdown baby, so we weren't going anywhere.
Okay.
She was
Yeah.
8, baby led weaning, and she was making a huge mess all the time. But
Perfect.
she's 3.5 now, and she eats really well. So
Yeah.
so all that is stuck to you. Yeah.
make the mess.
Yeah, mess is essential. Yeah.
Reduce the mess. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's very much short-term pain, long-term gain. And I suppose most people are going back to work, so think of yourself after a day's work. I anyway would want a child that's likes the same food that I do, is easy enough to feed. I don't have to make separate meals. So we lay the foundation for that before we go back to work. Is realistically the juggle. Yeah. Anybody else?
Got it. I'm sure the ladies will hang around afterwards if you have any more questions. Just going to do a quick raffle for NutriBaby, which is a really handy bit of kit if you are starting to wean. It basically blends, steams, does everything you need it to.